Hey guys, hope you're well. It's Alessio. We are joined today by my good friend, entrepreneur and property investor Paul Elliott of strategicrebel.com. Paul, how are you doing? You well?
Yeah, well, very well. Getting over a cold, but okay.
Great. Guys, in this video, myself and Paul, we're going to discuss the top 3 mistakes that people make when they're looking to buy a property or real estate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Paul. And Paul, if you could perhaps just mention the 3 mistakes people make when they're looking to buy a property. And let's start with number 3, and then we go to number 2 and number 1.
Yeah, no worries. And when it comes to investments, I would say in reverse order, the third biggest mistake tends to be people not knowing their numbers. So with property, of course, you can have equity value, you've got equity in the property. And of course, if you've got a rental property, then you've got cash flow coming in from the property, ideally, in terms of the rent being greater than your costs. Oftentimes what I see with people is they will buy a property hoping that they're going to get equity out of it over the next 5-10 years, but they don't look at the cash flow. So in the sense of they've rented it and the rental that's coming in isn't covering all of their costs. So that's a big mistake, because of course, even if you're saying, well, in 5 years it's going to have $50,000 of equity in it, it's like, well, that's great. We haven't got that today. And really, if the rent isn't covering your costs, where's the balance of the money coming from? It's coming out of your pocket. So therefore, you're subsidizing your own investments each month, because you got to keep paying the mortgage and everything else. So how many properties can you buy if you're subsidizing them? Not many, because of course you're going to run out of cash at some point. So that's a huge mistake. Actually, the most extreme I've seen of that is somebody buying that. I mean, she was driven, without a doubt, she was driven, and she wasn't one of my students, but she went and bought something like 26 properties in her first year. None of them cash flowed positively.
Wow.
So within a few months after the first year, she went bankrupt because she couldn't manage all the payments.
So you're saying something which I think everyone understands, which is that an investment needs to be a business. And it's not a business if you're cash flow negative. So in other words, the money coming in from your rents, from your tenants, needs to be over the amount, needs to be
yes, if you've got a mortgage on the property, it's got to cover the mortgage cost.
Yeah.
If the property is an apartment or a flat, then you've got something like ground rents, you've got to cover the ground rent costs. Then, of course, if you've got tenants, you're going to have some sort of maintenance on the property, because property needs looking after. So you've got to allow for all of that as well. So your rental needs to cover all of those costs. Otherwise, it's not a business. It's like if you're, Amazon's very popular at the moment. So if you were selling things on Amazon, if you're buying things in China and selling them on Amazon, but you're paying more to the Chinese supplier than you're getting from clients on Amazon, that's not a business.
Exactly.
You're just going to be out of business very quickly, and property is exactly the same. But where people slip up is they think, oh, there's equity in property, that will take care of me. No, it doesn't work that way. It's a business. All the numbers are going to stack up. So that's the third biggest mistake. In terms of number 2, understanding when you're buying a property, you might look at 100 properties in terms of coming across your desk, running the numbers, before you find one that's worth investing in. Because you are looking, ideally, doesn't always have to be, but ideally you're looking for what are called motivated sellers, which we talk more about in the full webinar. Obviously go there and see the full details. But motivated seller is someone for whom time is more important than money. So,
can you give us an example?
Well, yeah, I can give you an example. I remember, like, for example, a young couple typically, very excited, they've met, they bought a property together, they've moved in, they're looking at, spending the rest of their life together. And then, within a couple of years, they've fallen out. Yeah. So now the relationship's over, they want out. They're sick of seeing each other. They can't stand the sight of each other anymore, because we're human beings. So they want out. So they want to sell that property as quickly as possible so they can clear the mortgage, take out whatever equity's left that they may have and split it between them and just go their separate ways.
So in other words, what you're saying is divorce cases are people who are motivated sellers. For them, it's not about making a profit. They just want to quickly sell, get out of it. For them, time is more important.
Yeah, they want to close that chapter of their life and they want to move on. So they've got a problem that needs solving.
Yes.
So, understand. So you're looking ideally for motivated sellers. So, great. And then of course we're down to negotiation. So that's the second thing, is like just pay. Like if you're paying full price or over market price for a property, and of course you're not going to be making a profit, that's really not the way to do it. And again, this is because people have been told that property always pays. Yeah. Like, if you ever watched the movie The Big Short, you know, with the whole thing of the crash in 2007, you'll understand there's a lot of other factors that are in play. But if they believe property always works, and they go, it doesn't really matter what I pay for it today because it's going to go up in value anyway. It's like, well, it may, but you want profit today so that you're building your wealth today to allow you to leverage that to build even more wealth. So understand, motivated seller. If you're not finding motivated sellers, that's a big mistake. The top one is allowing your emotions to run your investments, not your head. You know, we go look at a property and you fall in love with the property. It's not about falling in love with it. It's about knowing the numbers. You know, if you're buying a home for yourself, absolutely your heart's going to rule because you want somewhere that you want to settle, you want to nest, you want to build a great home. Emotions matter in that respect. But when you're buying property for investment, it's only about the numbers. It's all about the head. So the biggest mistake I see with people is they let the emotion override the head when they should be letting the head override the emotion.
So essentially what you're saying is, Paul, is that people often mistake that buying property or real estate as an investment is not the same thing as buying a home.
Not at all, not at all. Like, you know, where you live personally, you might buy a property by a beach, you know, with a 5-bedroom villa and 4 bathrooms and all that kind of thing, because that's where you want to live. That's fine. Right. But it's not necessarily going to be an investment. I mean, maybe if you live there for 20 years, the equity value should give you a return. That's fine. But you're not looking at it as an investment. You're looking at it as somewhere that you would love to live that's going to make you happy. Whereas investment is very much about, no, this is a business. The numbers have got to stack up. If the numbers don't stack up, don't buy it. It's not an investment.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Fantastic, Paul. So that's 3 great mistakes, guys. Just let's go through it one more time, guys. So 3 was cash flow, making sure the property has cash flow. Number 2, number 2 was finding motivated sellers, and number 1 was making sure that your strategy is to buy an investment, not a home. Guys, please make sure go watch the recording that Paul did a webinar. He's recorded the webinar, and you can actually watch the replay, watch the recording. He's mentioned other mistakes. In fact, he's gone into more detail about the mistakes that people make when they're looking to buy a property, and also a lot more. What would people learn in this webinar replay and recording that they can go and watch? By the way, the link is right there for you in the description, also in the video, strategicrebel.com/recession. Go and watch the full video of Paul's. It's a free video, by the way. Go and watch the full video. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, so in the full webinar and the full video, we go into much more detail about the 3 core areas. So knowing your strategy, knowing how to do the research so that you know what numbers you should be looking at to make sure everything stacks up. And then the third part is the negotiation. Property is ultimately about negotiating in terms of getting the right price and the right terms in order for you to be able to actually see a profit from your investments. So we go into that in much more detail, but those are your 3 core areas. So go watch the webinar, go watch the video, and obviously take lots of notes so you can be prepared to, because this is a great time. If we're coming into a recession, there is always a transfer of wealth whenever there's a recession. And the transfer is from people who don't know what they're doing to people who do know what they're doing. So which side of that equation would you like to be on? If you want to be on the side of knowing what you're doing so you can benefit, then go watch the webinar.
I agree. Paul, thank you.